When did the call from the Atlanta Falcons come to try out for the
Yeah.
dance team?
So my parents and I, we moved to Savannah because basically my parents said, because they were, again, working blue collar jobs. And both my brothers were attending U of M, Michigan. And they told me about summer before my senior year, right now we're barely getting by with your brothers in college, two of them. And when you go to college in about a year, we don't know if we'll be able to afford you going to college. So we're gonna have to, think of different way to earn a living. And luckily, my dad had a friend around Michigan that had a bunch of beauty supply stores, and he was gracious enough to extend the credits of his vendors to my dad if he were to open up a store, same beauty supply store. But he said, obviously, you can't open one up around here because then you'd be my competitor. So we thought, okay, what are we gonna do? So back then it's those, folding maps that you can't, once you open it, you can't put it back.
Right.
So we just
Hmm.
kind of laid it out. We're like, okay, do you want to take a trip down to, you know, down south to see, explore different towns? So my parents and I, we grabbed the map and got in the car. And summer before my senior year, our first stop was Savannah. We wanted the coastal cities. And then we went to Jacksonville, we went to Mobile, Alabama, and then I think, actually stopped in Jackson on the way back up. And what we would do is we would go to those cities, look at Yellow Book, back then, those yellow,
Hmm.
yellow pages, and look for the beauty supplies in the area and see how many beauty supplies there are. We would even do a little drive-by, and we would pick up apartment finder books from all those cities. And we came back up, and it took us like a couple weeks. We threw everything on the dining room table and we're like, okay, where are we gonna go? And so we just decided, okay, you know what? We're gonna go to, did you like Savannah? Yeah, I like Savannah. Did you like Savannah? Yeah, it was cute. So we're like, okay, let's go to Savannah. That's kind of like how it was, almost like throwing tea leaves in the wind and see whichever falls, right?
Hmm.
So I called, well, at the time my parents still didn't know how to speak English well they um because they always worked blue collar jobs where they were pretty isolated. So I'm the one that had to make all the calls for apartments. And then once we moved to Savannah, I'm the one that had to go to City Hall, So long story short, I couldn't go out of, even though after high school, I really couldn't, now that they were in a business where they need somebody to be able to communicate for them, I couldn't go away to college. So I stayed in Savannah. I went to a small college in Savannah while I was attending. I went to visit a friend in Atlanta, somebody that lived in Savannah and just moved to Atlanta. I went to go visit them. And somehow I found out that Falcons was having like a workshop, pre-tryout workshop. And I'm like, oh, just like, back in seventh grade, I'm like, oh, sounds fun. Let me try it. So I went to the workshop, and the girls there, the cheerleaders at the time, they were so nice. They were so welcoming. So I'm like, okay, and I got the courage to go back the following week and try out. So I tried out, and I made the team. So I came back and I told my parents, can I please move to Atlanta? Because at the time we've had our business for about 4 years. So it was pretty much kind of on autopilot. They kind of had the structure set, and they told me, yeah, you've done enough for us in the family, and I think, now you can go. So I never looked back. So
And then I'm sure that had to prepare you for WCW and the Nitro Girls dance team as well.
yes, yes. So AC Jazz, she I didn't cheer with her. She left before I got on the Falcons. So AC Jazz and Spice Melissa, They both worked out, and also Terry Fire. They also worked out at. They all worked out at main event, so they knew everybody was a main event at the time. Paige was, Kimberly, Luger, Sting. I mean, it was Sting and Luger's gym. So everybody worked out there. And when Kim got the project to start create a group, Kim knew Amy was an ex-Falcons cheerleader, and Kim knew Melissa at the time. She was a dancer for Life College, which is a chiropractic school. So Kim knew that both of them were dancers. So they, in a way, didn't even have to try out. So Kim just went to them and said, okay, heck, so I'm putting together a group of girls. I want you guys to be a part of it. And can you please help me find more dancers? So from there, through their contacts, Melissa and Amy, they put together different tryouts. And of course, Amy reached out to her friends at the Falcons, and we got the word saying, hey, there's some kind of because like for us as entertainers and dancers, we go to auditions for different things, whether it's a music video or because in Atlanta. So we were told there's a audition for a dance team for a TV show. We're like, okay, well, that sounds pretty cool. So a bunch of us went and tried out. And from there, that's when I got a Nitro. And at the time, I didn't even know what Nitro was. I knew Hulk Hogan just because my grandparents watched them. Like, I just knew the name, but I didn't know anything about wrestling, let alone Nitro.
I mean, going from dancing for the Atlanta Falcons, which is huge in its own right, to being on this prime time nationally televised show. I mean, that's got to be high pressure.
What's so funny is it never, the crazy part is, as wrestlers, they train to get that spot on TV.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much work that they go into, and they know exactly what they're getting into, and they work so hard for it. But with us, a lot of the girls who love to dance, you have to have a main job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Vanessa was a professional. Melissa was a chiropractor. Everybody kind of had their main job, but our passion, our side thing was dance. So in a way, it's like we never really understood the whole mentality of the whole wrestling, because that's not what we ever really went for. We just wanted to dance, and
Right.
and if that makes sense. Um, so it really wasn't so. So if you can, I mean, this is so bad to say, but like the girls that all came together, we were actually like, well, I guess you could say that I was also a professional, because actually I was running my parents' business.
Mm-hmm.
At one point we had 3 stores, and I was managing the business and stuff. So it was like professionals that came together for the love of entertaining and dancing. So in a way, we didn't really feel pressured, because not to
Right.
mention, because here's the thing, I think it's completely different. We had a different road than the wrestlers did, because wrestlers did not only do they have to think about their work in the ring, they got to think about their character, they got to think about cutting good promos, they got to think about just being catchy, and just being so energetic. But for us, we just kind of go out with a smile on our face, and we practice enough where we probably could do our routines with our eyes closed, and we just come off. So it
Right.
really wasn't, yeah. So obviously, all the girls that's been dancing, we're used to the stage, we're used to the audience. So it never really, it doesn't, it got, it obviously, it got very big, but even so, then we just never thought of it as being anything. We always stayed humbled. We knew we weren't the main dish. We knew we weren't even the side dish. We were just garnish.
Well,
Uh,
you were still an important part of the show. I mean, people obviously still remember the Nitro Girls years later as a big part of WCW
I
programming
hope so. Yes,
through
yes.
the years. I mean, do you still hear from fans or hear from people at conventions being
Right.
like, I remember you, you were one of my favorite dancers, or you're my
Right.
favorite?
We do. We do. We do. We've done different shows here and there. I think the most recent was maybe 3 years ago. It was Kimberly was there, and Fire and Spice and we did a show, and it's just amazing. It's very humbling and mind-boggling at the same time for people to come up, but it's so at the same time, it's like, you know, it it's unbelievable because they come up, they're like, "Oh, you were my favorite Nitro Girl. I watched you when I was 15." And this is coming from a guy that's probably 40. Or even, in his mid, yeah, probably 40. So it's really neat because initially, once we got off the show, there was a big demand for us. And then it was kind of quiet for a while, but the demand kind of picked up, last, handful of years. And I think it's because about 20 years, I think, is the time when things become very nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
When you're 10 years old, all of a sudden now you're 30, 35, and you look back and all of a sudden we are part of this person's childhood where they remember sitting around maybe with their grandparents or maybe with their dad or even with their friends. It was like their ritual of Monday night, and they see it as such a time of coming together and having fun. So, and when they look back in their childhood, we also become one of their childhood. Because if you think about it, whenever there's any kind of remake, Friends, they didn't do a remake until about 20 years after they went off air. So I think 20 years is about the time when um when we just kind of when we're kind of when we become somewhat relevant because we become now we're like nostalgia.